Hello everybody and welcome to today's video, and in today's video I'll be discussing why the 2022 Senate elections heavily favored Democrats. Now, first off, yes, this is coming up on Friday and not Thursday. I'm recording a lot later than I anticipated to be recording, so actually I'm going to try to make this relatively quick. Also, yes, I think that the Democrats will win the Senate in 2022. I think that this will be the only Democratic victory in terms of the Senate, House, and gubernatorial elections. I think that the GOP is probably favored, or is definitely favored in the House, but is probably favored in the gubernatorial elections. I think that the best that Democrats can, or that not can do, because I could see them doing fairly well, and they obviously technically can win a lot of races, but the best I see them realistically doing is 25-25, and I think that the GOP is probably favored within the gubernatorial elections. But in the Senate, I do think this is a strong point for Democrats, and I think that the map does greatly help them. Now, this is the current Senate map. Now, I'm just gonna go label states that I deem to be swing states, as likely. Alaska, you could throw in there. Colorado, you could throw in there. I'm not gonna throw either of them in there. Iowa maybe, but I think that with what's her name? I'm thinking Hour. I don't think it's gonna be enough still. Maybe against Pat Grassley, but still, I'm gonna say Iowa is essentially like entirely safe for the GOP. But looking at this, I think that at the moment the GOP is very vulnerable in Pennsylvania. I think that Fetterman isn't a flawless nominee. I think that he definitely has his problems. As a candidate, I don't think that Connor Lamb is going to be much better though. I think that Lamb is probably a worse candidate. Fetterman, he's going to really struggle, I think, with black turnout, but he's going to do very well with white rural voters. I think it's going to be a strong point for him. I think he's going to do exceptionally well, like better than typical Democrats, even Democrats who are like very strong for white rural voters. I think that he's going to be something of something that we don't typically see. But I also think it's going to be very strong for the white working class. So I think that Pennsylvania, at this point, is. I think it's probably going to be a fairly narrow margin of victory, but I do think that it is relatively safe to say that the Democratic Party will likely carry the state of Pennsylvania. And then after this, it kind of is more difficult for the GOP, because at this point, for them to carry the Senate, assuming that Pennsylvania does go to the Democratic Party, or assuming that this is the map, for them to win the Senate, they have to flip two more states. Once again, assuming this is the map. And looking at the states that they're most likely to do that in. First off, I would say New Hampshire. Yes, definitely. That is definitely a state that the GOP will almost certainly pick up, assuming that Chris Sununu runs. If he doesn't run, the GOP is kind of screwed, and I can talk about that later. However, first off, for them to be able to for them to win, assuming that this is the map, they would need another pickup, whether that be in Nevada. I don't think Nevada's going to happen. I think that's essentially going to be lean Democratic regardless of the nominees. Arizona, I think it's possible with Brnovich if he outperforms what we anticipated him to do with suburbanites. But I think at this point Kelly is probably going to win. I think it'll be potentially narrower than Pennsylvania, but I do think that Kelly is going to win. Or Georgia, which is the other swing state, which I think is very hard for them to win, especially with someone like Herschel Walker being their nominee. I think that he is not the best nominee that they could actually. Well, I don't think that there are many. I don't know if there's any candidate other than Donald Trump, who's obviously not about to run in Senate for Senate in Georgia, that they would nominate that would actually win, especially against Warnock. I think that Herschel Walker maybe could do decent. I mean, like, I think that he could. I think that him, like I'm from Georgia. I've lived there for a lot of my life. I think that knowing a lot of Georgians, he's loved in Georgia, honestly. And he could do very well with rural voters, potentially even better than Trump, just for like the Georgia football as history, I guess. Which it could help him. He is loved down there, believe me. But I don't know that it would be enough necessarily, especially against someone like Warnock, who's going to be a powerhouse for black voters. Very good, I think, for rural black voters, and he's not gonna be necessarily a great nominee for white rural conservatives, but I could see a situation in which he's just horrendous for white rural conservatives and just does terribly. But I could also see a situation where it is the Bible Belt, and I could see him being, like in the church, definitely helping him. And I'm not about to talk about religion. I'm not exactly the most knowledgeable about religion, to be fair. But he could, I could see it helping him. But regardless, I think that Georgia is still going to go to the Democratic Party. And this is assuming that the GOP flips New Hampshire as well, which isn't necessarily certain. But another very potential flip for the Democratic Party is the state of Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is it's a very competitive state. Right now, it really depends on whether or not Ron Johnson runs, and it's really hard to tell, but it is essentially a very, very close. It's essentially a toss up at this point. And I'm really not certain where to put this. And the fact that it's this competitive, like let's go label all the typical states for this. The fact that it's even that competitive should be worrisome for the GOP. Because at this point, for them to be able to win, assuming that this is the map and assuming that these are the swing states, assuming that Pennsylvania is flipped, they have to flip 2 states in order to win the Senate. Now, they could bring it down to just 1. Well, not only having to flip 1 state, but also hold Wisconsin, which is not exactly an easy task. Holding Wisconsin, and flipping one of those 3 other states. Assuming, though, that Chris Sununu does not run, New Hampshire is likely D, easily. Then this puts the Democrats in an even better spot, in which case the GOP now must flip one of these 3 states, and hang on to Wisconsin, and flip another one. So essentially, for the GOP to win, if Chris Sununu doesn't win, assuming that Pennsylvania goes blue and every other state is safe, so obviously they could carry, like, Colorado or Maryland or something random, but assuming that this is the map, and assuming that the swing states would be the only potential flips, for the GOP, if Chris Sununu doesn't run, assuming the Democrats flip Pennsylvania, they have to hold on to Wisconsin and flip 2 of these states. It's a very, very difficult map for the GOP. I don't think that they'll pull through. I think that they will definitely lose the Senate once again. I think it could even be an expanded majority for Democrats. Once again, though, I do think that Democrats will lose the House. I think they'll lose it big. I think that the gubernatorial elections are definitely favoring the GOP right now. But I think that the Senate is going to be a tough spot for them. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Please comment your suggestions down below. Go comment down your question for the Q&A video that I released recently. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.